We are in the series of Just Go this morning. We've been there the last couple of weeks, and we've been learning about how to go into all the world and make disciples. And Pastor Brian and Josh have had the privilege of heading off to Honduras with Compassion and World Renew last month sometime in the beginning of January. And I didn't get to go. So I'm getting to ask the questions today. And so we're going to interview and kind of find out about their journey. I've spent some time with them this week in the office, and Josh had just come off a night shift, and we were 8:30 in the morning, and he was eating pepperonis and hummus. It stank. But he was, the joy in his eyes as he was sharing this story, it was just melting my heart as we were drinking coffee and sharing together. And so I'm excited for you to hear that as a church this morning. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and you're going to lead us and share a bit of your heart this morning. So our first question is, and this is to Pastor Martin, why did we as Discovery Church begin exploring a partnership with Compassion?
So a couple of months ago, we've been looking at how we can impact the world around us, in our community and also globally. And there are so many options for us as a church to get involved in. There's so much in the world that needs fixing. There's so many places that we can donate to. But one of the things that I was hoping for is that we could connect with an organization, and in this case, two organizations in one place, where we could actually make and build a relationship, a long-term relationship with a community, where we could go back again and again, we could visit, that we could connect with, and make a difference, where we could see the difference, and we could actually hear from people in that place that we were going to. And I knew that Compassion had all kinds of different places around the world where they were doing ministry. I met with Amy, the regional director, and we sat down and talked together, and I suggested Honduras. And one of the reasons for doing that is because our denomination also has an agency, an agency that cares for the poor and the needy, does things like cement floors and tin roofs and builds wells and all those kinds of things. And so we could partner together. Compassion doesn't do those projects, but our denomination does. And I thought, what a great way for us to meet in a city and do something for a community. We could visit them again and then sponsor kids through Compassion in that same city, and then possibly even take a bunch of people from Discovery back again and again, or for just once, and meet their sponsored child. And that was really the heart behind it.
Awesome. So can you tell us why it was so important for us to do a site visit? Why couldn't we have just picked kind of from here and said, hey, this one will do, we'll do missions here, because that's what Jesus says. Why was it important to do a site visit?
One of the things it did is it began the relationship process. It began for us, and especially as we got to know and understand the community and the people there, it helped us to form a relationship. And out of that relationship, I think really, really great things can happen. I think another one is just logistically. Can we bring a team? Do they have facilities for us to go to? Are there reasonable accommodations? What's the food like? And who are the people that we might be actually ministering to? So it was really good that way to meet the staff from World Renew, to meet the staff from Compassion, and already connect with them on the ground.
Awesome. Josh, you ready? Can you describe some of the things that you saw and did in your week in Honduras?
Yeah. So we left on Saturday and flew into San Salvador, which is the capital of El Salvador. Stayed the night, enjoyed nice beds and really good food, and got a sample of what it's like to eat Central American food.
Plantains. That was your favorite, wasn't it?
I hate bananas. Plantains are bananas without the sweetness, which just makes it weirder. And it's a staple down there. That's one of the main things they eat, and I couldn't eat it. And people laughed at me the entire week. So Sunday we flew into Tegucigalpa, which we found out is one of the most dangerous airports in the world.
Yeah, you can see from the video that it's like diving into a bowl.
So the pilots for these planes have to be specially trained, and basically it's a dive bomb run. I actually was looking outside wondering where the fighter planes were. Anyway, so Sunday we flew in, we met Rolando, who was our guide for the week, and he took us to our bed and breakfast, and we stayed in this lovely place with this lovely family. We got to know them over the course of the week, and they were wonderful people. Unfortunately, for those of us who are interested in going as teams, we probably won't get to stay in such a nice spot. Monday, we were taken out into Tegucigalpa by one of the translators from World Renew, named Stavros, and he took us up to the Ascension of Christ statue, which the video was showing, and we walked around in the gardens, and we visited the Valley of the Angels and did some touring, but we also went to a downtown market in the middle of Tegucigalpa. Now, anybody who has seen videos of what a second to third world country market looks like, it's pretty much what you envision. Cramped spaces, lots of small people in tiny alleyways, getting in my way as I'm trying to go from one point to another, as I'm ducking fish and chicken hanging from the ceiling, followed by, what was it? We had like silks, pastries, and raw meat within about 10 feet of each other. Yeah. I don't know why.
And Josh was walking 2 feet behind me the whole way.
Yeah, well, I mean, my job is a security guard, so the place made me twitchy, and Salvaros was keeping Dad distracted, but I was watching, and I saw weapons, and I saw scary people everywhere. And it really sank home once we went back to, the next day when we went out to the southern part of the country. It was just such a different dynamic out there. And then, we drove out there, and Rolando's telling us the whole way, it's going to be hot, it's going to be hot, it's going to be hot. Naturally, of course, he thinks Canadians melt. I'm not sure why. And so we got there, and we got out of the truck, and it was very warm. I'll agree with that much. But the thing that struck me was the difference in landscape. It looked like a video clip from like the African savannah, right? Starched trees with almost no leaves on it. The ground was dry and cracked. It looked like there had been a mini earthquake. You could see 6-8 inches into the ground because it was so dry.
Yeah. We went to this place and visited with a family there. And they introduced us to something that World Renew is doing. It's called Aquaponics. And if you're familiar with hydroponics, aquaponics is basically with fish. And so they have this tank. They have tilapia fish in a big tank, about 55 of them. The fish poop in the tank, basically provide fertilizer. Then the water gets bled off over the rocks where the plants are growing. And then as the water gives nutrition to the plants, it then gets filtered down through the rocks, gets collected at the bottom, and then in that tank in the bottom, little tiny fish, the baby fish are growing, and then the water then gets circulated back up into the larger tank. And this is kind of what it looks like for real on the ground. So that big tank there, that's where the fish are. And then there were 3 of those smaller 4x4 boxes where there was there were vegetables growing. The amazing thing about that was because it's warm all year long, there's 5 or 6 harvests that they can do. The woman told us that she was able to get 139 cucumbers off of one harvest. They grew peppers and tomatoes, garlic, cilantro in there, and whatever they can fit into those 3 or 4 spaces. But the amazing thing is that they could harvest 2 fish a day, harvest the vegetables, and feed a family of 6 in this extremely dry environment. All they had to do was add water. They needed some electricity for a pump, and they needed fish food. And it was just an incredible way for World Renew to provide a family with food security for a whole year. Indefinitely, as long as they kept planting and replacing some of the water. So that was really a really cool part of that first day. And then the second day, we went to one of the other World Renew sites. And our experience from the market to going into that site was very different.
Yeah, so we went to the MCM Compound. MCM is one of the partners with World Renew in Tegucigalpa for urban development. So there's us with all the ladies from the compound there, and Rolando standing next to me there in the checkered shirt. So this place started as a therapy, as a place for ladies who were victims of domestic violence to come and have a therapeutic outlet. So that was the agriculture, that was that outlet. And it exploded, basically. It was so successful that they started to sell their produce. And that got the attention of the local government, who then put more funding in to allow them to expand the project, so that now they supply 700 or 800 pounds of bell peppers and jalapenos every couple of weeks to the local supermarket, which makes money for the people who work there, and then also helps. On top of that, they also help feed the local community. And it was just like, I'm not a super spiritual person, but we drove into that compound, and it was the first time in 3 days that I relaxed. Like, Tegucigalpa made me twitchy. I'm just my defensive thinking was on guard all the time, even when we were at the house that we were staying at. But we drove into that compound, and just the peace and the security of the place settled over me, and within 10 minutes, I felt so much more relaxed than I had the entire time we'd been there so far. And then from there, we did the first day. We just did a tour and met with the ladies and hung out. And that lady Marta there, she wanted to come home in my suitcase.
She almost fit.
She almost fit. Dad's suitcase was pretty big.
Josh, would that not have been a good idea?
I'm not so sure about that. And then we hung out with some kids, had a good time. They just wanted to take a picture, and I said, no, we got to do something funny. So we stuck them on a table, and then I stuck them on my shoulders, and after that, they didn't want to leave me alone, and they wanted to climb up on my shoulders all the time. So that was a very amusing time. And then I spent some time with Julia there and her friends and the ladies sorting through the peppers and cleaning and just talking. And one of the younger ladies sat next to me, and she gave me her phone, and we started talking on Google Translate. And I learned that she wants to be a doctor, and she's going to school to be a nurse, and she's got 2 kids, and she's working at this place and working at another job and taking care of her kids and going to school. And it's like, you know what? I know people here who do that, right? Like, I know people who struggle with finances and family and being a single parent and all that stuff. But these ladies in particular were laughing and smiling, and then we ran across the odd man. I think there were 3 of them in the entire facility, over 50 women and a bunch of kids, and then there were 3 guys other than us who were on site. And then in the compound is the place where the teams would stay, which is this mission house that has been built for 50 years or something like that, with beds, and these 3 amazing, funny ladies who love to cook for people and are super hospitable and just love to share the love of Jesus with everybody that they meet. And it was just an amazing experience for me personally, both the Wednesday and the Thursday that we were there, just spending time and getting to know the ladies and laughing and cracking jokes and practicing my very, very rudimentary Spanish and all that fun stuff.
We were also able to hear about how World Renew started a microloan program for some of the ladies. And one of the ladies that I posted this morning on my Instagram page, she was wearing the black shirt, if you saw my Instagram this morning. She started a small business in her home making tortillas. And this microloan program, obviously if you're poor and you don't own a home, no bank is going to loan you any money. So World Renew set up this credit union so that they could withdraw funds in order to start these micro businesses, which was just so inspiring. On the last day that we had with people in Honduras, we went with Compassion. We met with a translator, a staff member who was working with Compassion on the ground, and they took us to 2 sites. If you have a look at this picture of all these little boxes here, these are 200 of the programs that are running. This is in the Compassion head office, and our site is this next little one. And if you look at the Compassion kids on the table, they all start with this number, HO0205. And the kids that we would like for you to sponsor are here today from this site that we went to visit. And it was just incredible how compassion works. Brad shared about those 5 pieces, those 5 things that are cared for with those kids. And the staff were just so eager to sit us down and make sure that we understood that they have a system, that they have checks and balances. It was an hour and a half of ledgers and files and books. And
we got about 45 minutes into it, and I walked away, and Dad's like got glazed eyes, because they are so eager and so enthusiastic about their system. Yeah. But it was way too much information.
And one of the things that they wanted to tell us was that they take great care of making sure that every penny is accounted for. School supplies are budgeted for a year in advance. Bibles, educational materials, doctor's visits, home visits. It all has a paper trail, and gifts that are sent, letters that are sent, it all has a paper trail. If you send a gift, a parent has to sign for it so that they know that it's gotten to the right recipient, and so on and so on and so forth. And then we sat down and we had lunch together, and this wonderful little girl came up to us during our lunch break, and she handed Josh and I, well, another girl came up to Josh, and the picture that she's got in her hand is this one here. And she and her classmates were hearing the story of Jonah and the whale. And she decided that it would be wonderful to share that with us. And in addition to a whole bunch of other little things, they also took a picture in one of the classes while we were there, and then printed it and had the kids come up and sign it and put some scriptures on it for us before we left. And I was just really blessed to have that from this little girl. Her name is Vanessa. Yeah. So that was what we did while we were there.
Sounds like you did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next question. Could you please share with us your greatest joy and your deepest sorrow during the trip?
You want to start us off, Josh? Okay. Go ahead. One of the greatest joys, I think, for me, in both the two places, was the faith of the people that we came across. In World Renew, Rolando, our guide, introduced us to these, what he called warrior women. And these two ladies were in the original group from the domestic abuse. And World Renew came along and gave them leadership development, leadership training, but also biblical training. And they are now the community leaders. When we talked to them, their faith just exuded. And we said, at one point, some Spanish is going on, and I didn't understand what was going on. And Rolando said that one of the other ladies, speaking about these warrior women, said, if you want God to answer prayer, you get her to pray for you. That's how powerful this woman's faith was already in the community. And when we got to the compassion sites to see that churches are the anchor point for the compassion ministry, it's not a staff-based ministry, but a church takes hold of it, and compassion comes alongside and helps build the infrastructure around taking care of up to 200 kids per site. That was probably the greatest joy for me. And I think the greatest sorrow was going there as an exploratory week that I just couldn't do anything, right? I felt like, I just wish I could have done something. And one of the challenges that we had, one of the statistics stay with me. So if you're into like numbers and stuff, this is going to be interesting to you. For maybe some of you, it doesn't. But our guide said that 50% of the population is below the poverty line. Additionally, 45% are extreme poverty, which leaves about 5% of the population for middle class and upper class people in Honduras. And that just overwhelmed me. I thought to myself that the systemic problems that must come from that are enormous.
Yeah, the demographics are super intense. Like here we have the same demographics on a more subtler scale. I mean, we all know about the homeless people in our cities and whatnot, but there it's in your face, painted in neon yellow and green. Like it's so obvious. For me, the greatest joy was the smiles on the kids' faces. Those two girls that I hung out with at the MCM compound, along with a couple of the younger boys who were, he's hanging out and he's being all macho, trying to saddle up to me and giving me elbows and laughing and cracking jokes and stuff like this. But then when we went to the compassion sites, the smiles on the kids' faces, like there was not a single unhappy kid in those buildings. And when we went to the second site, we came in a little behind the start of the day, and the kids were singing songs to start the day, worshiping Jesus, hands in the air and eyes closed. But then about 2 minutes into that section, there's a knock on the door, and because of the area that they're in, the door is like it's a steel garage door, and it's locked from the inside. And so the teacher that let us in, she had to open the door, and this kid come in, and he's crying. And I thought maybe he was upset, but I got enough of the gist of what he was saying to realize he was crying because he was afraid they weren't going to let him in because he was late. He was so upset that he was late that he was bawling his eyes out. And this is like a 7-8-year-old boy, not like a 4-year-old who's inclined to be emotional about everything. This is the kid who wants to look tough in a neighborhood where being tough is probably a good survival tactic, and he's bawling his eyes out because he can't go to school. And that just really spoke to me of how much the compassion affected these kids, not just the teachers, not just the curriculum, but just the social aspect of that. He was so upset that he couldn't be in that safe place, that he was going to be stuck outside and he wasn't going to be able to worship Jesus and sing with his friends and go to school and learn things and do things with his friends. And I thought that was just so amazing and really touched me. The sorrow was brought to the fore for me when we went to a home visit after we went to the second site for compassion. We went to visit a cobbler.
The family name is Mendez, and Juan Carlos is right below me in the picture, and his wife is, where is she? She's to Josh's right on the picture, and they had a couple of kids, and then the worker that we went with is sitting down with the little girl in her lap. She's got the purple shirt on, but the rest of them were all working together in that home.
And that home was the size of this stage, maybe a little bit bigger. And they had a 2-tiered bunk beds to one corner behind me and Dad, and then the entertainment section is to our side of the picture there, and then around the corner from the girl in pink was the kitchen, and directly across from us was where the home business was run, and that's where he made his shoes. And the whole family makes shoes, all the kids. The girl in pink, that's their eldest daughter. She's actually moved out and has 2 kids of her own. The little boy she's holding and the little girl that the worker's holding. And then the little girl and the young fella in black in the middle are both, the young fella is already in the compassion program, and the little girl they're applying to have her start in the coming year. And those 2 kids going into the compassion program meant that the whole family was able to more efficiently feed and clothe their whole family as a whole, because these kids are provided with a lot of that material through the program. The thing that really hit me was that, like I said, they were living in a tiny little room, all slat boards and concrete walls with a tin roof, on the side of a mountain that could literally wash away at any moment. Like, they were telling us that, the biggest threat to their existence, aside from the gangs, was thunderstorms. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, it rains so hard during the rainy season that a flood can come down the side of the hill and wash their whole house away. Lock, stock, and barrel. And it was like, I couldn't believe how nearly and this guy worked for a living, right? And his whole family works together, and yet they were in such a poor state.
When we got there was a little whispering going on with the mother and the boy in the black, and all of a sudden he disappears and then comes back a few minutes later with paper cups. You can see the paper cups on the table. They didn't have enough cups to serve us Coke that they had, and they bought cookies for us, and which was an expense for them. And our guide said, don't refuse. These people have given a lot to share hospitality with you. And we were just so honored by just that small act of kindness.
Yeah. And so the dad was working the entire time we were there. Didn't stop, not for a minute. He threw a compliment over his shoulder every now and again, but he was a very focused man. And then I asked him, because I saw the shoes his son was wearing, which are the same shoes he makes, and they were really nice. I thought, oh, handmade shoes. I says to him, I says, well, can you make me a pair of shoes? And he looked at my feet, and he just laughed, and he shakes his head. He said, no, way too big. And I says, well, you know,
Mucho grande.
Yeah. I said that statement a lot that week. Mucho grande gringo was my go-to statement when it came to myself. And so I was wearing my big work boots, not these boots, but I was wearing my big work boots, and I said to him, I says, well, how do you make shoes? And he pulled out this wooden or plastic, I think, shoe form, and he showed it to me, and it was maybe a size 10 or 11. He says, that's the biggest shoe he's ever made. And I told him, I says, you know what, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to bring you a shoe form for my feet, and you're going to make me a pair of shoes. And he says, yeah, sure, sounds good.
Awesome. Finally, did you feel God speak to you in the week? What did he say to you, maybe personally, or did he speak to you on behalf of our church?
Well, like I said before, one of our frustrations over the week, and we wrestled with this, Josh, a little bit more verbally than I did, but we really wrestled with, I don't know what to do. There was so much need, and there was this internal conflict all week long, seeing all of the things that could be done or should be done. And one of the greatest challenges, I think, was that we just need to do something small, that we need to commit to going. Maybe we need to commit to fixing something. But I think that was really the primary thing for me over the course of that week.
Yeah, the greatest struggle was to fit what we wanted to do into the way that the World Renew has created, into the World Renew system for building up these communities. John describes our struggle as holy frustration, the pressure of the Spirit to do something. And I agree that was what we felt. And as Dad said, I was much more verbal about it because when I'm frustrated, I need to express myself. And Rolando was very, very patient with me in particular, but with Dad as well, walking us through the concepts of World Renew system. And the basis of it was, as the two of us figured out, was you can't fix the whole world. You can fix a piece of it, one piece at a time, one life at a time, and then that's where World Renew system comes in, because they don't focus on fixing just the physical stuff. They start by fixing the people. You build the people, and the self-sustaining system that the World Renew has developed takes effect and starts to fix things almost of its own accord. As Dad said, the faith of those two ladies in the community from MCM was the catalyst that brought the community together. And through those ladies, not just the two we spoke of, but the whole group that was in the picture with us by the truck, the reach of World Renew has spread through that entire community. And because of that, and Rolando mentioned this, Suyapa, which is the city the area where Compound is considered by rumor and general word of mouth to be very, very dangerous. It's like the kind of place you don't go at night. Now, it's significantly less so. Still not a place I would recommend wandering around in the dark, but going there during the day, as long as you're respectful and don't step on anybody's toes, it's a relatively safe community based on what it used to be, because these ladies have inspired the community to make themselves better. Not necessarily.
What Rolando was trying to communicate to us, and what Josh is saying, is that we don't come and do the work. the community gets together, the community decides, the community figures out what the agenda is, and Rolando and the agencies and even Compassion come alongside the community to do what God is asking them to do.
You build the people first, and the rest will follow.
Yep.
Yeah, great. So we're going to ask Brad in a second to come back up and kind of talk a little bit more about sponsoring children and what that looks like. But as a church, what are some of our next steps? What if people in this room are saying, I want to get involved, I want to go, I want to see Josh's shoe be made, I want to go. So how do they do that? What's our next step? What's going to happen moving forward as a church?
So there's three ways that we can get involved. I think one of them is certainly by praying for World Renew and Compassion. The second one is if you would want to sponsor a child, if they're in this community that we visited. And thirdly, you may get a chance to join us on a trip in the next year. We'd like to organize something and go down to Honduras, do a week-long project in a community, and then meet the sponsored kids.
Awesome. So as you've been there, would you like to just take a moment and pray for the people this morning, pray for the things that you've seen, and just pray for our hearts as we kind of explore whether this is something we should be getting involved with?
Father in heaven, we thank you for the people like World Renew and Compassion, organizations and agencies that have heard the call to go, to just go into the world and to spread the good news, to share your love, and also to seek mercy and justice and compassion. Father, I pray that you would bless them and our church on that journey as well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So amazing to hear all those stories and to hear your experience just fleshed out in that kind of way. Obviously, all of you haven't had that experience quite yet. Maybe soon you will be, and hopefully we can connect you with some of those precious kids from Honduras. You know, we find that the best sponsors aren't just those who give of their financial resources, but also those who sow in relationship, you know, who write letters. That's one of the most amazing that impacts the children. I see so many times when I visit that they hold the letters that they receive from their sponsor just as precious gifts in their home and bring them out and show me. They read them over and they can read that someone's praying for them, someone believes in them, and it just changes their life. And there's so many divine connections that can happen through sponsoring the children. So just before we close, I'd love to just show you this video of one family and their child and how this divine connection happened through sponsoring through Compassion. So let's watch.